The floor was already clean. Ifeoma knew this because she had mopped it herself 40 minutes ago, and yet here she was, mopping it again, because standing still in this house made her feel like something was watching her from the walls. The bucket water had gone gray and cold. The mop left thin streaks across the black marble that dried almost immediately in the way that surfaces do when they have been cleaned too many times and have no more dirt left to give. She wrung the mop out over the bucket and listened. The estate was too quiet for a house this size. She had arrived that morning at 6:45, 15 minutes early, because her mother had raised her to be early to every job that paid money. The gate at the end of the lane had been unlocked and left slightly open, which she thought was odd for a property this large. The house itself was enormous, 3 floors, stone walls the color of old bones, and tall windows that looked like they had not been opened in years. The garden around it was neat but not warm. Trimmed hedges, gravel paths, flower beds with flowers that looked more like decoration than anything alive. The kind of garden that was maintained because it had always been maintained, not because anyone loved it. The housekeeper, a woman named Gloria Marsh, met Ifeoma at the front door before she could knock. Gloria was somewhere in her late 50s, slim, with gray hair pulled back so tightly, it seemed to lift her eyebrows into a permanent expression of mild surprise. She wore a dark navy dress and flat shoes. She shook Ifeoma's hand with 3 fingers, barely, and stepped back to let her in without smiling. "You are the new one," Gloria said. "Yes, Ifeoma Adeyemi. We spoke on the phone. I remember." That was the warmest exchange they had that morning. Gloria walked her through the house at a pace that suggested she had done this before and found it tedious. The kitchen was large and fitted with old appliances that had been kept in working order out of stubbornness rather than preference. The pantry, the laundry room, the downstairs bathroom, the formal sitting room that no one appeared to sit in, the dining room with its long table set for nobody, the library lined with books that had the particular stillness of books that are never opened. Upstairs, 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small room that served as a study for the owner of the estate, a woman named Mrs. Calloway, who Gloria mentioned once and then did not mention again. Ifeoma did not see Mrs. Calloway that morning, or that afternoon, or the following day. She learned the rules of the house in the same way she learned the layout, quickly and without warmth. No radio, no phone calls in the main rooms. The windows on the second floor were to remain closed. Fresh flowers for the entrance hallway every 3rd day. Laundry folded in a specific way that Gloria demonstrated once and expected her to remember. Meals left outside the 3rd bedroom on a tray at 7 in the evening. She asked whose room it was. Gloria said, "It belongs to Mrs. Calloway when she is resting." Ifeoma nodded. She had worked in enough private homes to know which questions would not get answered. At the end of the first day, Gloria handed her a ring of keys, large, heavy, iron-colored, and pointed to each one in turn. Front door, back door, garden gate, supply cupboard, boiler room, laundry room. She counted 7 keys. She looked at the ring and felt, without being able to say why, that there should be 8. "The basement," she said, before she could stop herself. Gloria looked at her. Just looked, for a moment. "The basement is not part of your work," she said. "You clean what is upstairs. The basement does not concern you." She said it the same way she said everything else, evenly, without heat. But something shifted in the room when she said it. The air felt slightly different. Ifeoma noticed it the way you notice a smell you cannot identify, something beneath the normal smells of a house, something older. "Of course," Ifeoma said. "Good. That was the end of it. Or it should have been." On her second morning, Ifeoma arrived at the usual time and went directly to the kitchen to begin work. As she passed the door at the far end of the hallway, a low, heavy, dark wood door with a lock that was larger than all the others in the house, she noticed something on the floor in front of it, a tray, not left there for a guest, not waiting to be collected, the remains of a meal, a bowl with its bottom scraped clean, a glass with a ring of dried liquid, a folded cloth napkin. Someone had eaten from it. Someone had eaten well from it, and the tray had been collected and returned empty and left again, as though whoever carried it had been interrupted or distracted or simply forgot. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she picked it up, carried it to the kitchen, washed everything on it, dried it, and put it back in the cupboard where the trays were kept. She told herself it was nothing. She told herself the house was old and had routines she had not yet learned. She told herself a great many things that morning, and none of them fully worked. That evening she carried the dinner tray as instructed to the third bedroom door and left it on the small table outside. As she turned to walk back down the hallway, she heard something. She stopped, stood still. She was in the habit of being still in moments of uncertainty. It was something her father had taught her as a child, when they would walk in the fields outside their town, and he would tell her that the world only spoke to people who stopped moving long enough to listen. The sound came again. It was not loud. It was not alarming in the way that screaming is alarming. It was low and rhythmic. 3 slow knocks, from somewhere far below the floor she was standing on. Then silence. Then 3 more, after an interval. Patient. Deliberate. The kind of sound that is not made by pipes or settling wood or anything mechanical. The kind of sound that has intent behind it. She went to her room at the top of the house. She sat on the edge of her bed and looked at the floorboards beneath her feet. She did not sleep until past 2 in the morning, and even then, she slept lightly, with one part of her mind still down there in the dark with whatever had knocked. She did not tell Gloria. She did not know why she did not tell Gloria, except that she had looked at Gloria Marsh enough times by now to understand something that she could not put directly into words. It was the way Gloria moved through the house, not as though she worked in it, but as though she guarded it. The way her eyes moved to the basement door every time she passed it in the hallway. Not a glance, a check, a deliberate, purposeful look that lasted exactly as long as it needed to, and then stopped. By the end of the first week, Ifeoma had cleaned every room in the house twice. She had learned where everything was. She had carried 7 trays to the third bedroom door and brought 7 empty ones back. She had exchanged approximately 40 sentences with Gloria Marsh, most of them about cleaning supplies. She had not seen Mrs. Calloway once. She had heard the knocking 3 more times. Always at night, always 3 slow beats, always from below. On the 7th day, she found the key. She was cleaning the kitchen, genuinely cleaning it, pulling the cooker slightly out from the wall to get at the grease behind it, when her cloth caught on a loose tile behind the counter. The tile came away easily, as though it had been loosened many times before. Behind it, pressed flat against the wall, was a small envelope. Inside the envelope was a key. It was not on her ring. It was new, or at least newer than everything else in the house. The edges were still sharp. It had not been used many times. She turned it over in her hand. Then she put it in the pocket of her apron and finished cleaning the kitchen. She told herself she would decide what to do with it later. She made herself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table and looked out the window at the gray garden and thought about her daughter, about the school fees that were due in 3 weeks, about the flat she rented, which had a window in the bathroom that could not be fully closed and let in cold air all winter. She thought about what she had come here to do: work, earn, send money home, survive, the way she had always survived, by being careful and quiet and useful. She put her hand in her pocket and touched the key. She did not go to the basement that night, but she went to sleep knowing she would. Not out of carelessness, not out of curiosity exactly, out of something harder to name. A feeling that the key had been left for her specifically, that whoever placed it behind that tile had done so knowing she would be the one to find it, and that the choice was already made. She just had not made it yet. Gloria had left on the afternoon of day 8. No warning, no explanation. She had come downstairs at 2 in the afternoon dressed in her outdoor coat, carrying a small travel bag, and told Ifeoma that she would be away for 3 days and that the house was to be maintained in the usual way. The meals, the cleaning, the routines. She did not mention the basement. She did not look at the basement door when she said it. She simply left. Ifeoma watched the car move down the gravel lane until it turned and disappeared behind the hedge line. Then she stood in the front hallway for a long moment, listening to the house settle into its own silence around her. Something was different now. The house felt different when Gloria was not in it. Looser, as though the woman's presence had been holding something in place, and now, without her, the shape of the house had shifted slightly. She went back to the kitchen. She made herself a meal. She ate it slowly, looking at the pocket of her apron hanging on the hook by the door, where she had moved the key that morning. She had been moving it from pocket to pocket every day, which was not a practical decision. It was a decision that said she had not yet decided. She thought about the tray. Someone below this floor was eating meals that she was not bringing down, which meant Gloria was bringing them, which meant Gloria knew, which meant the rule about the basement was not about safety or secrecy in the ordinary sense of those words. It was about keeping Ifeoma away from something specific. She put her dishes in the sink. She washed them. She dried them and put them back in the cupboard. Then she took the key from her apron pocket and walked down the hallway to the basement door. The lock turned on the first try. The stairs were stone, narrow, cut directly into the earth beneath the house. There was a switch on the wall at the top, a single bare bulb somewhere below that threw more shadow than light. She turned it on. She held her phone in her other hand with the torch on, pointing it downward. She went down. The basement was large, larger than she expected. Stone walls, a low ceiling, the smell of cold and damp stone and something else. The particular warmth of a living person in an enclosed space. There were shelves along one wall with old boxes, a water tank in the far corner, a single drain in the center of the floor, and to her left, seated on a low wooden chair, with his back against the wall, and his wrists bound by a thick chain attached to a pipe that ran up through the ceiling, was a man. He was not young. He was not old. He was somewhere in his middle 50s, broad in the shoulders, with gray at his temples, and a face that was marked across one cheekbone by a bruise that had turned from purple to yellow at its edges. His shirt was torn at one sleeve. His shoes were still on. He was not slumped. He was not shaking. He was sitting with a straightness that seemed deliberate, the way a man sits when he wants to make certain that whoever comes down those stairs sees him and not his condition. His one good eye found her immediately. He did not speak. He watched her. He watched the torch beam, the tray she had brought without realizing she was going to, the way she had stopped 6 steps from the bottom of the stairs. He was taking her in, not the way a frightened person looks at someone, the way a person who has spent a great deal of their life reading rooms and reading people looks at someone new. She set the tray on the 3rd step. Then she held the torch steady and looked back at him. "I am not one of them," she said. She did not know why she said it first. It felt necessary. "No," he said. "You are not." His voice was steady and low. He had an accent she could not immediately place, somewhere between English and something older. He spoke like a man who had learned to control the sound of his voice, the way other men learn to control their hands. "How long have you been down here?" she asked. 11 days, he said. 12 tonight. She looked at the chain. It was attached to the pipe with a lock she did not have a key for. She had no way to free him. This was the first thought she had. The second thought was that she was standing in the basement of a house where she worked, looking at a chained man, and that whatever this was, it was not something she could unknow. "Are you in pain?" she asked. "Some," he said. "Not enough to matter." "The water on that tray is from the tap. I did not bring it from downstairs intentionally. She stopped. "I came down to see." "I know," he said. "You have been listening from above for days. I could hear you stop in the hallway." She felt a slight prickling along her skin that she would not call embarrassment. "I heard you knocking." "Yes," he paused. "I knocked because the woman who normally brings the food is careful. She does not linger. She does not look at me when she comes down. You are different. You stop. You listen. I thought perhaps you were someone who might actually see." She came down the last 3 steps and crossed the floor and handed him the tray directly, close enough that he could take it without having to strain against the chain. He took it with both hands, which meant the chain allowed him just enough movement to eat, but not enough to stand. She noticed this. She noticed the position of the pipe, the angle of the chain, the length of it. She noticed everything without meaning to, because she had always been the kind of person who noticed things. He ate without embarrassment or haste. She sat on the bottom step and watched the wall and waited. When he finished, he set the tray on the floor beside him and looked at her again. "Your name," he said. It was not a demand. It was offered as an exchange. "Ifeoma," she said. "You?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Aurelio Voss." She had never heard the name. She told him so. Something moved in his expression. It might have been relief. "Good," he said. "Who put you here?" she asked. He looked at her for a long time. The bare bulb hummed. The water tank ticked. "People who work for me," he said. "Or who used to." She turned this over in her mind. "You lead them." "I did. And now they have put you here." "Yes." "Why?" "Because I am in the way of something they want," he said. "And they are not yet ready to remove me permanently. They need something from me first. Information. A signature. A code. When they get it, they will not need me anymore." She stood up. She picked up the tray. She turned toward the stairs. Ifeoma, he said. She stopped. The woman who runs this house, he said. She is one of them. Not the leader, but she is one of them. You understand what I am telling you. She did understand. She understood it in her body before she understood it in her mind. She thought of Gloria's eyes moving to the basement door every morning. She thought of the key behind the tile, placed where Gloria would never think to look because Gloria did not clean behind the cooker. She went upstairs. She locked the basement door. She stood in the kitchen and breathed slowly. Then she filled a glass with cold water and went back downstairs. She put the glass on the floor within his reach. She sat on the step again. Tell me, she said, exactly what kind of trouble I have already walked into. He looked at the glass of water. He looked at her. A long look, measuring, the kind that had probably decided a great many things in his life. More trouble than you want, he said. Less than you can handle, I think. She folded her hands in her lap, then start talking. The bare bulb hummed above them. The cold settled around the stone walls. Outside, far above, the house breathed its silent breath over the evening garden, and nobody in it knew that the most important conversation happening in the county was taking place 12 steps below the kitchen floor. He talked. She listened. She did not interrupt, which surprised him. She could see it surprised him. Most people, when they are afraid, fill silence with noise. She let the silence do its work and waited for the words that mattered. By the time she went back upstairs that night, she knew 3 things she had not known that morning. She knew who Aurelio Voss was, not the name, but the shape of the man and what he represented. She knew, roughly, who had put him in this basement and what they wanted from him. And she knew that the moment Gloria Marsh returned to this house, Ifeoma Adeyemi's safety could no longer be assumed. She sat in her room at the top of the house, looking at the ceiling. She thought about her daughter, Adaeze, 8 years old, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness, who had written her a letter that week in careful, school-taught handwriting. I hope you like your new job, Mummy. The teacher said, I am good at reading. I miss you. Send me a red pen if you can. She thought about the school fees. She thought about the flat with the broken window. She thought about what it meant to be in a foreign country alone, with no one to call, no family, no one who would come. Then she thought about the number Aurelio had told her, the number he had offered. She closed her eyes. She had 3 days before Gloria came back. 3 days was not a long time, but she had done a great deal in her life with much less. On the morning of the second day, Ifeoma went downstairs before 7. She brought Aurelio bread, hard-boiled eggs, and a fresh glass of water. She set them within reach. She sat on the 3rd step, which had become her step, the one she thought of as belonging to her in the way that certain small things become yours during a crisis without discussion. He was awake. He had, she suspected, been awake for most of the night. The circles beneath his eyes were deep, but he held himself in the same way. The straightness of his back, the steadiness of his gaze. She had begun to understand that this was not pride. It was discipline, a long-practiced habit of not letting the body announce what the mind was working on. You did not sleep, she said. I slept enough, he said. You are going to need to be more honest with me than that, she said, if we are going to do this properly. He looked at her. Do what properly? Whatever comes next, she said. I have not decided yet, but if I decide to help you, I need you to be straight with me. About everything, not just what you think I need to know. Everything. He held the bread in both hands and looked at it for a moment. That is a large request. It is the only request I am making. He nodded, slowly. Then he began to eat, and between bites, he talked. The organization he led, he used the word organization without embarrassment, without softening it, was large and had been running for over 30 years. He had taken over from the man who built it, a man named Clifford, his uncle, who had died of a heart attack at his own dining table 11 years ago. Aurelio had spent those 11 years trying to hold something together that was, by its nature, always pulling itself apart. Too many people with too many interests, too many arrangements made with people who could not be trusted, but had to be trusted, because the alternative was worse. The men who had put him here, he called them the Western Group, a faction of 6 or 7 senior figures who had decided, after years of watching him try to reduce the organization's more dangerous activities, that he was a liability, that he was getting cautious in his old age. That caution was weakness. They had planned the removal carefully. A meeting was arranged at a property they said was neutral. He had been taken there. 2 of his personal security team had been paid in advance to simply not be there that day. And then you woke up here, she said. I woke up here, he said. What do they want from you before? She paused. Before they decide they have finished with you. There are accounts, he said. Funds, a significant amount. They are not accessible without specific information that only I have. They have been trying to get it for 11 days. You have not given it to them. No. Why not? If giving it to them means they let you go. It does not mean that, he said. It means they no longer need to keep me alive. She understood. She sat with that for a moment. Who knows you are missing? My daughter, he said. She is in another country. She was told I was traveling. She may have started asking questions by now, but she does not know where to ask. Anyone else? 2 men I trust completely, he said. Their names I will give you if we reach that point. She leaned forward on the step. There is a phone number you mentioned last night. The contact. If I call that number using the code phrase you gave me, what happens? Those 2 men are reached, he said. Or one of them. They are told where I am. They come. How long? If the call reaches them, 12 hours, perhaps less. And the people who will come, are they like the people who put you here? He was quiet for a moment. They are careful people, he said. They will not harm you. That is not what I asked. He looked at her with something that was almost respect. No, he said. They are not like the people who put me here. The men I trust chose to stay with me precisely because they did not want to be what this organization is becoming. She sat back. She thought about it. The phone call was simple enough in theory. 1 call, a code phrase. She had memorized it already because she memorized things easily. Always had. The difficulty was not the call itself. The difficulty was what happened after it. Because once that call was made, she was no longer a cleaning woman who had stumbled onto a secret. She was a participant, a witness, a person the Western group, as Aurelio called them, would consider a problem to be dealt with. If I make the call, she said, I cannot go back to being the maid. No, he said, you cannot. And if I do not make the call, and Gloria comes back and finds that I know, then you are already a problem, he said. You have been a problem since you came down those stairs. She had known this. She had known it since the night before, but hearing it said plainly, by a man who understood this world better than she ever would, made it real in a different way. The number you offered me, she said. Last night? He waited. It is not enough, she said. He was very still for a moment. Then he said, what figure did you have in mind? Double, she said, and I want it moved before I make any call. Not promised. Moved, into an account I will give you. I cannot access funds while I am chained to this pipe, he said. No, she said, but you can give me a second number, someone who can authorize the transfer on your instruction. I will call that person first. I will confirm the movement. Then I will make the other call. He looked at her for a long time. The basement was very quiet. The water tank ticked. Outside, impossibly far away, a bird made a sound somewhere in the gray garden. He laughed. It was a short sound, not unkind. You have done something like this before, he said. I have never been anywhere near anything like this in my life, she said. And yet, I have been poor for a very long time, she said simply. You learn to think clearly when the stakes are real. He gave her the second number. He gave her the name to ask for, a man named Patrick. He told her what to say, and what Patrick would ask, and how to confirm that the money had moved before she ended the call. He told her all of it steadily and without hesitation, which told her something about him, that once he committed to a course, he committed fully, no half measures. She wrote nothing down. She held it all in her head. There is one more thing, she said. Yes. Mrs. Calloway, the owner of this estate, where is she? I have been here 9 days and I have never seen her. Aurelio was quiet. She is not in this country, he said. The estate is rented. The arrangement was made through a company that does not carry anyone's real name. Whoever holds this property for the next 3 months knows exactly what it is being used for. So no one is coming to check on the house. No one legitimate, he said. Except Gloria. Except Gloria. She stood up. She looked at the chain. She looked at the lock that she did not have a key for. She looked at Aurelio's wrists, where the chain had pressed the skin red and sore. She was not a person who cried easily, and she did not cry now. But something moved through her, a feeling she could not name. Not quite pity, not quite anger, something older than both. "I will make the first call this afternoon," she said. "I will confirm the transfer. If it goes through, I make the second call tonight." "The transfer will go through," he said. "I believe you," she said, "but I will confirm it anyway." She went upstairs. She stood in the kitchen with her hands flat on the counter and breathed slowly, the way her father had taught her to breathe when she was a child, when the world outside was making its noise and she needed to get quiet inside herself quickly. Then she picked up her phone. Patrick answered on the second ring. His voice was measured and cautious, the voice of a man who answered unknown numbers with care. She spoke the words Aurelio had given her. There was a silence. Then Patrick spoke, and they moved through the exchange exactly as Aurelio had described. It was precise and careful, and took less than 4 minutes. Before she ended the call, she read out her account number. Patrick said, 6 hours. She said, "Thank you," and ended the call. She went back to the basement. She sat on her step. Patrick answered. She said, "Good," said Aurelio. He said 6 hours. "Yes," he said. Patrick is careful, but he is fast. They sat in silence for a moment. It was not an uncomfortable silence. It had the quality of silence between two people who have agreed on something and are now simply waiting for the world to catch up. "Your daughter," he said. "How old?" 8, she said. He nodded. "Mine is 23, he said. She wants to study medicine. She is very clever." "You are proud of her." "Enormously," he said. "Then we are both doing this for the same reason," she said. He looked at her. "I suppose we are." She went upstairs. She prepared a full meal, not from the trays but from the kitchen, the actual kitchen, with food she found in the cupboards, meat, rice, vegetables. She brought it downstairs on a proper plate and set it in front of him and sat on her step while he ate, and they talked about things that had nothing to do with the situation, about food, about what Nigeria was like in the rainy season, about whether the estate garden would look better with color in it, about small ordinary things that kept the fear manageable and the mind from spinning. At 6 in the evening she checked her account on her phone. The money was there, all of it, doubled as agreed. She looked at the number for a long moment. She thought of Adeze writing her letter with her careful handwriting. "I miss you, Mummy." She dialed the second number. A man answered. She spoke the code phrase. The man's voice changed immediately. The same change Patrick's had made, from careful distance to sharp attention. She gave the address of the estate, the postcode, the name on the gate. She said, "He is in the basement. He is alive. He is chained. Come quickly." The man said, "Stay in the house. Stay visible. Do not change anything about how the house looks. We will be there." "How long?" she asked. "Before morning," he said. She ended the call. She sat in her room. She did not sleep. She listened to the house. She did not hear anything from below, but she was not worried about Aurelio. Aurelio had been sitting in that basement for 12 days. He could manage one more night. She was thinking about Gloria. Gloria, who was due back in 36 hours. She was thinking about the fact that the men who had chained Aurelio to a pipe would not simply sit and wait while someone came to undo their work. She was thinking about the glass of water she had left in the basement on that first visit, and whether she had brought it back upstairs, and trying to remember, and not being sure. These were the kinds of details she knew that made the difference. Outside, the sky had gone fully dark. The garden below her window was a flat black shape. Somewhere on a road she could not see, 2 men were already driving, coming here, to this house, to the basement below her feet. She turned off her light. She sat in the dark and waited for morning. She heard the car at 4 in the morning, not on the main lane, somewhere behind the property, on whatever road ran parallel to the back garden. A low engine, cut short, then silence. She was already awake, sitting in the chair by her window in the dark, fully dressed, her coat folded over her arm. She had been awake since midnight. She had been sitting in this chair since 1, watching the lane and the garden and the gate at the bottom, running through every version of what the next few hours might look like. The sound came from the wrong direction for Gloria. Gloria would come up the front lane. This sound came from behind, which meant it was them, the people from the phone call, coming the way people come when they do not want to be seen coming. She did not move toward the door. The man on the phone had said, "Stay visible, act normal." At 4 in the morning, Normal was asleep. She stayed in her chair. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then she heard the sound she had been dreading more than any other sound in this situation. Not from outside the house, from inside it, below. The front door. Not the basement door. The front door, opened with a key. The same quiet, particular sound of the front door opening that she had memorized in 9 days of arriving early each morning. She knew the exact sound of the latch, the soft pressure of the door against its frame as it closed. Someone had come in through the front of the house. Gloria was not due back until tomorrow morning at the earliest. Ifeoma stood up. Her mind ran very fast. She thought of the water glass. She thought of Gloria picking it up from the kitchen counter. No, not the kitchen counter. She had put it back in the cabinet. But Gloria had been looking for something when she picked it up from the basement. Had she found it? Had she looked? Had she gone back down? She moved to her door and listened. Footsteps on the ground floor. One set. Light, careful, flat-soled shoes. Not boots, not heeled. Someone who knew how to move quietly. Gloria. She was back a full day early. Ifeoma thought of Aurelio below. She thought of the food she had brought him tonight. The proper meal from the proper kitchen, not from the tray supply. If Gloria went down and saw that, she would know. If she checked the food cupboards and compared what was missing to what was on the tray supply schedule, she would know. And if she found the basement door unlocked, Ifeoma's hand moved to her apron pocket. The key was there. She had it with her. The basement door was locked. She had locked it herself before coming upstairs. She breathed. She opened her door. She walked calmly down the 3 flights of stairs, not rushing, not creeping, the way you walk when you are a person with nothing to hide who is simply responding to the sound of someone arriving at an unexpected hour. Gloria was in the kitchen. She was standing at the counter in her coat, still on, not yet removed. Her travel bag was at her feet. She was looking at the stove. The stove which Ifeoma had used that evening to cook Aurelio a proper meal. She had cleaned it thoroughly afterward. She had cleaned everything. But the kitchen had a particular smell when the stove had been used. A warm, faint smell of cooked food. That was different from the cold, lemon-clean smell it normally held. Gloria's nose was moving slightly. She was registering it. "Mrs. Marsh," Ifeoma said, "you are back early. I did not expect you until tomorrow." Gloria turned. Her expression was exactly as it always was, controlled, neutral, the eyebrows slightly lifted by the pulled-back hair. "I finished early," she said. "Have you eaten recently?" "I made myself something at dinner," Ifeoma said. "About 7 o'clock. Said Gloria. It was a small sound. It meant nothing and everything. Ifeoma had heard that sound from women like Gloria before. Careful women who stored information rather than reacting to it. Who built their cases silently and then acted. "Is everything in order?" Gloria asked. "Yes," Ifeoma said. "All the usual routines. The rooms are clean. The laundry is done. I left the evening tray at the usual time." Gloria looked at her for a moment. Then she looked around the kitchen, slowly, the way she had walked every room of the house on the afternoon of Ifeoma's second day, systematically, nothing missed. Her eyes moved across the counter, the cabinet doors, the sink, the dish rack where Ifeoma had left a plate and a glass to dry. One plate, one glass. Gloria looked at them. Something shifted in her face, very small, a slight tightening of the skin around her eyes. "You use the large plates when you eat alone?" she said. Ifeoma looked at the rack. The plate was large. It was the kind she had put Aurelio's meal on. She had put her own meal on a bowl, which she had already put away. The large plate was his, washed and placed to dry without thinking. She felt the ground shift slightly under her. "I was hungry," she said. "I made a larger portion than usual." Said Gloria again. She picked up her travel bag. "I am going to bed," she said. "We will speak in the morning." She walked out of the kitchen. Her footsteps moved down the hallway toward her room on the ground floor. Ifeoma did not move. She stood at the kitchen entrance and listened until the bedroom door closed. Then she crossed to the hallway and looked at the basement door. The lock was intact. The key was in her pocket. She went back to her room. She sat in the chair. She did not put the light on. Gloria knew, or suspected, or was close enough to knowing that the distance between suspicion and certainty was going to close very quickly in the morning. Ifeoma had perhaps 6 hours before that happened. She looked at her phone. No message from the number she had called. No signal that the men outside had made their move. She did not know where they were. She did not know what they were doing, or what their plan was. She had been told to stay visible and act normal, and she had done that, and now she was sitting in the dark in a room at the top of a house that was beginning to feel like it was closing in. She thought, I could leave. She thought it clearly and without flinching. She could walk out of this house right now with her bag and her phone, and the money that was already in her account, and she could be 2 miles away before anyone woke up. She could be at a train station by 6. She could be out of this county, this situation, this entire story, by noon. She sat with that thought. She let it exist. She did not push it away. Then she thought of Aurelio, chained to a pipe in the basement, 12 feet below where she was sitting. She thought of him hearing Gloria's footsteps above him. She thought of what would happen to him when Gloria went downstairs in the morning and found that someone had been bringing him real food, had been visiting, had been talking to him. She thought of what would happen when the men who had put him there were called because Gloria would call them, and they would come back to this house, and they would not come back alone. She stayed in her chair. At 5:30, her phone vibrated once. A single message from an unknown number. 2 words, in position. She exhaled slowly. Her whole body did something it had not done in 2 days. It softened slightly, just around the shoulders and jaw, as though the muscles that had been holding everything rigid had finally received permission to rest for one moment. She typed back, "The housekeeper returned early. She is inside." The reply took 4 minutes. "We know. Do not go downstairs. Keep her above ground." She thought about what that meant. Keep Gloria above ground. Keep her upstairs, away from the basement, for whatever amount of time the people outside needed. She did not know how she was going to do that without Gloria choosing to go down. She had no authority over Gloria. She had no way to lock the basement door from above without going to it, and going to the basement door would make Gloria suspicious immediately. She sat very still. Then, at 6:15, while the first gray light was beginning to come under her curtain, she heard it. Not footsteps in the hall below, not the basement door. Something else. A sound from outside, from the direction of the front of the house. Not loud, not dramatic, not the way things sound in films. A voice, 2 voices, muffled by the stone walls and the closed windows but present. Men's voices, outside the front door. Then knocking. She heard Gloria's bedroom door open. Then Gloria's footsteps in the hallway. The front door opening. A brief exchange, too low to make out. Then a sound she had not expected. Gloria's voice, raised slightly, not panicked but sharpened. The sound of someone whose carefully maintained situation was not proceeding according to their plan. Ifeoma moved to her door. She opened it. She heard Gloria's voice clearly now, from the ground floor. "You cannot come in here without..." And then a different voice, a man's, level and firm. "Mrs. Marsh, step back from the door, please." Then another voice, one she recognized. Aurelio. Not chained, not in the basement. Standing, she understood, in the front hallway of the estate, which meant the men from outside had gone in another way, through the back or through the basement directly, and had freed him, and he was standing in his own house. Not his own house, but his house now, in the way that a person who has been released from something claims the first solid ground they stand on as entirely theirs. She walked down the stairs. She came around the corner into the front hallway and saw him standing near the door, a coat over his shoulders that did not belong to him, the bruise on his cheek yellowed and fading. Beside him, 2 men she had not seen before, broad and careful. Across from him, Gloria, no longer contained, no longer the woman who counted her sentences and held her neutral face. She looked smaller, exposed, like something that had been kept out of light too long. Aurelio saw Ifeoma. He looked at her for a moment. "Thank you for the food," he said. It was much better than what she brought. Gloria looked at Ifeoma. It was a long look. Then she looked at the floor. One of the men took Gloria by the arm, not roughly, and walked her toward the sitting room. The door closed behind them. Ifeoma did not ask what would happen in there. Some things were better not known. She leaned against the hallway wall. Her legs, she realized, had been tense since the moment she heard the front door open, and now they felt as though they were made of something not quite solid. Aurelio stood in the hallway and looked at her. "You stayed," he said. "Yes," she said. "You did not have to." "I know," she said. "Why did you?" She thought about how to answer that. Not because she did not know the answer, she knew exactly why, but because the answer was a simple one, and she had found in her life that simple answers made some people feel they were being dismissed, when in fact they were being given the realest thing she had. Because it was the right thing to do, she said, and because I have already been paid. He looked at her for a moment longer, then once again he laughed, that same short sound, not unkind, from the basement 2 days ago, as though something about her continued to catch him off guard. Come, he said, let us get out of this hallway. They sat in the kitchen, of all places. Ifeoma made tea, because it was the only thing she could think to do with her hands at that moment, and her hands needed something. The two men who had arrived with Aurelio moved through the house with a quietness and purpose that she did not try to understand. The sitting room door stayed closed. She did not hear Gloria's voice again. Aurelio sat at the kitchen table. He sat differently than he had in the basement, not the disciplined straightness of a man refusing to let his situation reach his spine. He sat with the weight of 12 days in a basement finally allowed to settle over him, slightly forward, both hands around the mug she set in front of him. His eyes moved over the kitchen slowly, taking it in. The room he had never seen, in the house he had been held beneath. This is where you cooked, he said. Yes, she said. It is a good kitchen, he said. Wasted on this house. She sat across from him. The morning had not fully arrived yet. The garden outside the kitchen window was still gray. She could hear, very faintly, the beginning of birds. What happens now? She asked. He wrapped his hands more firmly around the mug. There will be a great deal of noise, he said. Not here, elsewhere. The men who arranged this will discover this morning that their plan has come apart. This will cause them to make decisions quickly and under pressure. People who make decisions quickly and under pressure make mistakes. Will they come here? No, he said. They will not come here. The men I brought with me are not the only ones who received the call. There are others, positioned elsewhere. The people who did this are going to find the next day or two quite busy. She nodded. And Gloria? He looked at the table. She will not be your problem, he said carefully. I promise you that. She did not ask further. She had made a choice when she sat in the chair at the top of the house and decided not to leave. Part of that choice was understanding that some things in this world moved according to rules she would not fully know and should not try to govern. Gloria had known exactly what was in that basement. Gloria had carried trays down those stairs for 12 days. Whatever came to her now was the result of a series of choices she had made herself, and Ifeoma would not spend her moral energy trying to argue with the logic of that. Your daughter, Aurelio said. She is at school? She is with my sister, Ifeoma said. Back home. I send money when I have it. I was saving for her school fees. The transfer Patrick made, he said. It is complete? I checked at 6 in the evening, yes. There will be more, he said. She looked at him. Not a gift, he said. Not charity. You made a business arrangement. You held your part. I hold mine. He paused. Also, you kept me sane for 2 days, with conversation about rainy seasons and garden colors, and that has a value I find difficult to put a number on. She almost smiled. Almost. I do not want anything that comes with conditions, she said, or that requires me to know things I should not know. It has no conditions, he said. It is clean money. Patrick will explain the mechanism. It will come through a company. Consulting, it will say. That is legal. I have not consulted on anything. You consulted on a very difficult problem, he said. You consulted extremely well. She looked at her tea. She thought about what consulting fees could do. She thought about Adeze and the school with the good science program that had a waiting list, and the flat with the broken bathroom window that she could fix now, finally, and the plane ticket home that she had been putting off for 8 months because the timing was never right. I will want to speak with Patrick directly, she said. Of course, said Aurelio. One of the men appeared in the kitchen doorway. He said something quiet to Aurelio in a language Ifeoma did not speak. Aurelio nodded. The man disappeared. The car is ready, Aurelio said. I am leaving. He stood, slowly. He was stiffer than she had realized. 12 days in a chair had done things to his body that even his discipline could not fully hide, now that the adrenaline of the morning was beginning to settle. He held the edge of the table for a moment, then released it, and stood straight. He looked at her across the kitchen. Come, he said. I will have someone drive you anywhere you want to go. I need to collect my things, she said. 5 minutes, he said. I will wait. She went upstairs to her room. She packed quickly, which she had always been good at. A life of moving between jobs, between cities, between other people's houses, had given her the ability to reduce herself to a bag in under 10 minutes. She stripped the bed. She left the room as clean as she had found it. Cleaner, actually, because she had cleaned it twice since arriving. She took her phone, her charger, her documents, her daughter's letter in its careful envelope. She looked at the room once more. She had spent 9 nights here. 9 nights of listening and worrying and turning keys over in her hand and sitting in chairs in the dark. It did not feel like a long time. It felt like a single long day that had simply refused to end. She went downstairs. Aurelio was in the hallway. Outside, through the narrow window beside the front door, she could see a vehicle at the end of the lane. Not the car that had brought Gloria back. A different one. Dark, clean, parked at an angle that suggested it had been placed there rather than simply arrived. He held the front door open. She walked out of the estate into the gray morning air. The garden was damp. The hedges were perfectly trimmed and indifferent to everything that had happened between their walls. The gravel crunched under her feet. She breathed in the cold air and let it reach all the way down into her chest, the way air does when you have been in an enclosed space for too long. The driver opened the rear door for her. She got in. Aurelio sat in the front. The 2 men from the house got into a second vehicle that had appeared from the side of the lane. They moved away from the estate. The gate at the bottom opened for them and then closed behind them, and the estate disappeared from view as the lane curved, and that was the last she ever saw of it. She watched the road through the window, fields, hedgerows, the beginning of a town, the world outside fully awake now, ordinary, moving around its ordinary morning business, people walking dogs, a van making deliveries, a school bus turning a corner. She asked the driver to drop her at the train station. Aurelio turned slightly in the front seat. "You are certain? We can take you directly anywhere." "The station is fine," she said. "I would like to travel on my own from here." He nodded. He understood. She could see that he understood. That after 9 days in someone else's house and 2 days in the middle of something very much not her own, she needed to be somewhere public and ordinary and moving entirely under her own power. At the station drop-off, she got out. Aurelio also got out. They stood on the pavement. The morning was picking up speed around them, people arriving, announcements on the tannoy, the particular noise of a train station that is the same in every city. She shifted her bag on her shoulder. "Patrick will contact you," he said, "within the week." "I know," she said. "If you ever need anything," he said, and then he stopped, because they both understood that, "if you ever need anything," was not a sentence that meant much between 2 people who barely knew each other and had no framework for the thing that had just happened between them. "Take care of your daughter," she said instead. "And you take care of yours," he said. That was the end of it. She turned and walked into the station. She did not look back, not because she was being dramatic about it, but because there was nothing behind her now that she needed to see again. Everything she was carrying forward was already with her. She bought a ticket. She found a seat on a bench near the platform. She sat down and put her bag between her feet and took out her phone. 3 months later, she was sitting in the waiting room of a medical clinic with Adeze beside her, her daughter swinging her legs against the chair and reading a picture book with enormous concentration, her finger moving under each line. Ifeoma had come home 6 weeks after leaving the estate. She had booked the ticket the day Patrick called, and Patrick had been as careful and precise as Aurelio had promised, and the arrangement was as clean as could be, and she had flown back with enough money to close every open account and breathe for the first time in 3 years. The clinic was the best one in the area, the kind Ifeoma could not have afforded 18 months ago. Adeze was here for a routine check, nothing concerning, just the kind of ordinary care that ordinary children deserved and did not always receive. On the low table in the waiting room, among the children's magazines and leaflets about vitamins, sat a newspaper, an international edition, 3 weeks old, its pages soft from handling by many waiting hands. She picked it up to have something to do with her eyes. The headline on page 11 was small, 2 columns, a story about a power struggle within an unnamed criminal organization operating across several European countries, a number of arrests, a number of individuals being sought, one name that she recognized, one of the names from the Western group that Aurelio had mentioned in the basement, mentioned with a flatness that told her this name represented the worst of it. She read the article. She read it carefully and completely. Then she turned the page. Not because she did not care. She did care. The way you care about a storm that has already passed. With a kind of retrospective attention. A noting of its shape and size now that you are safely on the other side of it. But the article offered nothing she needed. The thing was moving the way things like this move. In its own world. With its own gravity. And she was no longer inside it. She turned the page and found a piece about a gardening competition, and read that instead. "Mummy," said Adeze. She looked up. The door to the doctor's office was open. A young nurse was smiling from the doorway. "Adeze," the nurse said. Adeze looked at Ifeoma. Ifeoma looked at her daughter, 8 years old, with the letter she had written folded in Ifeoma's bag right now alongside her documents. The one that said, "I miss you, Mummy, and I am good at reading, and send me a red pen if you can." She had sent the red pen. She had sent it with a small notebook with a blue cover, because her daughter would fill the notebook and then want another, and it was better to get ahead of these things. "Go on," Ifeoma said. She squeezed Adeze's hand. Adeze slid off the chair and walked to the nurse with the particular confidence of a child who has been told she is brave so many times that she has decided to be. She went through the door. The door stayed open. The nurse began talking to her in the gentle, cheerful way that good nurses talk to children, asking about school and favorite subjects and whether she liked animals. Ifeoma folded the newspaper. She set it back on the table. She leaned back in her chair and looked at the ceiling of the waiting room, which was plain white and unremarkable, and entirely unlike the low stone ceiling of a basement on a country estate, and she let that difference settle over her like something warm. Then she took out her phone and sent a message to her sister. "We are at the clinic. She is fine." She walked in all by herself. Her sister replied immediately, "Of course she did. She is yours." She put her phone away. She laced her fingers in her lap. She waited for her daughter to come back out, which she would, in a few minutes, with a sticker on her coat and something to say about whatever had been on the nurse's desk, because Adeze noticed things, always had. It was, Ifeoma thought, a very good quality in a person. The morning outside the clinic window was bright, ordinary, entirely, unremarkably, perfectly ordinary. She sat in it and breathed.